All right, we're live. How are you?
Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Uh, awesome. Um, all right. So yeah, where would you like to start it off?
So yes, so what what is the trait that you actually consider that differentiates animals and humans?
Um,
You usually say sentience.
yeah, well, not that differentiates them. I believe that's what makes them both valuable is
Okay.
the sentience.
Okay. So if I ask you to name the trait, what would you say? Or do you or
Name the trait for what?
yeah? What is the trait that makes that would that if true of humans would just or I don't remember how the logic goes from for the name the trait. It was like
Yeah,
it,
so it's a name a trait for an animal that, if true of
yes,
humans, you would treat the human. You'd be
thank
able
you.
to treat the human how you'd treat the animal. But that's what would the vegan would say to the non-vegan.
Okay.
So I wouldn't name the trait because I'm the vegan. You're the non-vegan, right? Or are you vegan too?
I would consider well, I'm not vegan. I am
Okay.
eating meat or and milk and eggs and everything, but I would consider myself ethical.
Oh,
Like
okay.
like well, with my definition, I would consider myself an ethical person or ethical vegan, but I'm eating meat still.
Oh, interesting.
So,
Okay. So what do you do specifically that makes your consumption of animal products ethical?
well, I consider that okay. Can we go in another direction? Because I want to ask you not, and
Oh,
later I can ask I can
yeah.
answer at a later time.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, what exact let's try to figure out what you were
Yeah,
wanting to know from me
yeah.
about
You threw me
the
off
trait.
because I was thinking that you were saying that sentience, no rights or moral consideration doesn't exist outside sentience, right?
Correct.
Okay, so would you say that
So
a non-sentient person or like a comatose would not be morally valuable?
Um, well, no, because I don't think that would be outside of sentience. I think that would be connected to sentience. So that would be, especially based on our knowledge. So if somebody is in a comatose state, and they were sentient before they got in that state, and then we have good reason to think they will be out of that state, we could value um, their sentience that they will continue to have. Um, but but yeah, just to clear it up a little further, the my point on we there can't be anything to value without sentience would be if everything that was sentient in the world disappeared and the only thing left on Earth was rocks and water and different things that weren't sentient, then there would be nothing. There would be nothing to value anything because nothing could feel anything.
Well, let's. I'm gonna ask you that then. So you were saying that we, if we have a reasonable knowledge that comatose will regain sentience, then
Mm-hmm.
that's valuable. Would you not say that this is like potential for sentience?
Um, Uh, I wouldn't. I mean, I guess you can call that potential for sentience. So, for example, I believe I've heard that while you're sleeping, you're not technically sentient anymore. As far as your, because sentience means that you can perceive and you can feel. So I guess if you, while you were sleeping, if you were made to feel, like if somebody poked you with a tack, then your sentience would awaken you. But if you don't get awoken, then while you're asleep, I believe you're not sentient in that moment. And when you're and people in a coma are not sentient. Um, so the difference is you don't lose your sentience as a person. You're still a person with the central nervous system, which is what gives you the ability to be sentient. You just aren't experiencing those things that make you sentient. So I would say the only thing that in my
Okay.
mind makes me value that the future of this person that's not sentient would be two things. So one is a want for the future. So I have a want for the future. I'm really excited about the things I'm going to do with my life. So if somebody violated my ability to do that by doing something to me while I was in a coma, like ending my life or something, then I don't like that. I can't do anything about it. I won't know anything about it. So I don't like that. And then the other thing would be anything that could be done to me that would affect me when I came out of the coma. So, like if somebody cut my foot off, if I was not going to come out of the coma, then the foot cutting off doesn't matter. I'm not going to regain sentience. So it really doesn't matter. Somebody could eat my foot. But if they cut my foot off and then I come out of the coma, I would say that that's something that we as humans should value, and we should have it put into law that we can't randomly amputate people's body parts while they're in a coma if they are likely to come out of that
Like
coma.
some sort of implied consent, or
Yeah.
okay. So this this person, when I'm trying to understand what you meant. Um, so this person, so you value it because there is a fundamental structures or genetic structures or biological structures that lead it to have sentience, or something like that. Because that's what I actually value, like a fundamental structure or a
Mm-hmm.
final cause. Which it's a concept from metaphysics, or from Aristotelian metaphysics, that there's a fundamental structure that ultimately, uh, well, that is supposed to function in a certain way. So I want to make that distinction. If you consider this potential, or like a final cause, or a fundamental structure that gives value to the person, because
Mm.
potential is like uh, a consideration of the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, would you say that this comatose, we know, well, we know that they will not come back to sentience at all. There's no chance. So,
Mm-hmm.
would you be okay eating this person?
Eating
Yes or
them?
no? Well, killing them.
Killing them? Yeah. Yeah. I think that seems reasonable. If
Okay.
the professionals, like so doctors that have studied this and they know how to look at brain waves and they know a likelihood of coming back, it makes sense to me. I haven't thought to counter this idea that, and we got two things here. We got one is I don't think anybody necessarily deserves being kept alive or being saved. I care more about negative rights than I care about positive rights. So if you have a society capable of giving out positive rights, that's great and all. But I don't think anybody deserves to be saved. So if you have a machine that can keep somebody alive, and professionals are deciding if they want to unplug the person because the resources being wasted aren't worth it based on their knowledge, that seems acceptable to me. And as far as the eating, I don't care about eating anything once it's dead. I can't. Yeah.
Okay. So only yes. Okay. So killing. Okay. So how do you, because you at the end you were saying like resources or something like that, so it's not just the chances of the person being uh, re resentient.
Yeah, I mean, so it's kind of complicated. So yeah, if you know that there's chances of the person coming back and you're capable of keeping them on this life support, that seems nice to me. That seems worth doing. I would want people in my society, doctors and my family that can make choices. To keep me alive if there's a chance I was coming back. I don't think that's anything that's owed to me. So I guess I just don't have a strong thought on if I was drowning and somebody had to risk their life to save me, I don't think they should have to save me. So if people invent machines that can keep me alive and they do it, that's great. But I'm not owed those machines.
So so what is the right that we humans have, or the right to life? How do you describe it?
Okay, so I don't think there's any natural rights. I don't think we're born with anything where nature has any thoughts on rights. I think we have our own personal wants, and what's best for us is to form a society where we have laws and we basically just decide as a society what our rights should be, and we are afforded those rights through our government. So something like the right to free speech, I think it's very important to be part of a society where your government can't control your speech. So the government gives you this right. And then if you view something like protections, like negative rights, protections from death, I think that's a right because we are given that right by our government. So anybody that is going to kill somebody, they hopefully are going to be deterred not to kill somebody because of the punishment that comes in. So rights are given by law. And then aside from that, we individuals can give rights. So somebody legally in my country can kill a cow and eat it. And I can give a cow a right by saying I will not kill this cow. So I'm giving it this right. I'm personally giving it. So that's kind of how I view rights: is we can give personal afforded rights, or we can get our countries to create legal rights.
Okay, I think that the distinction between those two things, the rights that you're personally affording and the one by the government, or the yes, the government, I think that the first, that is personal, I think that's just a like a moral, like just your moral consideration of the animal. In the other, well, I view rights by, or morals by the government, which are rights, which like this these kinds of morals that are meant to create a morally functioning society.
Mm-hmm.
If there were no rights, there would be no morally functioning society, and society would uh, go into chaos. And we would lose, all of society would lose dignity. I view it this way.
Yeah. Like for example, just to make sure we're on the same page, so I'm in the U.S. and back when slavery was allowed, this was a thing where the slaves did not have rights, and so those of us that wanted those of us, I wasn't there, but those that wanted the slaves to have rights were hoping that would be given by the government, and so a country at any point can have. Like right now, it's legal to circumcise your babies. I don't think you should. This is a moral right that I think every human should have to decide on their own when they're older. And so luckily with certain laws, there might not be chaos, and with other laws there might be chaos. But the hope would be that everybody can have conversations and share their ideas in hopes that when more people are interested in something changing, we can get our politicians to change it.
Okay, so do you think there should be some sort of society or societal morals that are meant to upkeep, or just upkeep society, or only, or could it function just with personal morals by each person?
I mean, really, I think so you can't make anybody have any specific morals. Some people think circumcision's okay and some don't. Some think eating animals is okay and some don't. So it really comes down to kind of a majority slash whatever happens with politicians. I don't think the majority should control what happens, but I don't think a society should have something set where it never changes. I like the idea of people getting elected to represent different areas, and as time goes by, people change what they do. Like if you look back throughout all of history, you got people burning witches. At those times, they thought the witches were the bad people and they were doing the right thing. You had human sacrifices, slavery, all these things. So I think it's an ongoing change, and we have to use reason to explain why we should all be in favor of what seems to be moral.
And we can, do you think we can get to a final reason, or a final finalized version?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't think it'll be easy for everybody to get on board. It's really hard to know how humans think in general. A lot of our species seems to have evolved to go with the flow, to just like have your group of people that you follow what they do, and so can we get everybody to reason at some point? I don't know, but it seems like if you look through history, we are constantly getting better at figuring out ways to do things. I guess. Let's take animal treatment for example. Um, I think it's fair to point out that if somebody wants to just stab a dog and make it suffer, that should be illegal. And I think most people would agree with that. And I think if we had more conversations where people could see what happens to animals in factory farms, I think even meat eaters would want to regulate these things. And so as soon as you can convince somebody of something important, I think change can be made. So if you make rules that chickens can't be crammed in a tiny cage all day long, I think the majority of people would want this change, but it would take conversations to make it happen. But something bigger, like getting people to not consume animals, you would have to be able to convince them that they don't think it's necessary for them, and that's just a bigger feat because that would take studies and so on.
So, do you think these rights that we are giving to, well, these rights do not make animals suffer? Is it a right for humans or a right for animals?
Oh well, so the
Because
something being moral or immoral, I think, is connected to your ability to have pleasure or displeasure. So outside of a possible argument that animals, some people think that animals aren't having suffering or pain; they're just reacting to stimuli. Outside of that idea that I find to be silly, I think it can be clear that animals, an immoral thing's happening, whether we can justify it or not. So if I'm on an island and I kill a chicken to eat it because I'm starving, then that's how I'm justifying it. It doesn't make it not immoral, and the more it suffered, the more immoral it is. But as far as rights go, I think humans deciding their rights for their society, every human right can be decided without morals. We don't need morals. We just need to recognize mutual benefit. Everything that humans, on average, want or don't want, we can afford to each other. You don't kill me, I don't kill you. You don't steal from me, I don't steal from you. We have this mutual benefit where if we have this set of rules, it's perfectly reasonable that the rules we should follow you don't have to care that they also are connected to morals. Killing somebody could be immoral, but you don't need that connected to a law. Now, with animals, you can't make a mutual benefit rule. You can't say to the lion, if you don't kill me, I won't kill you, because they can't reason with us. They'll just kill us anyways. So with animals, in a society, if a society is advanced enough to treat others well, then you can make laws based on morals. So a dog's not going to agree to not bite us, but it's illegal to stab a dog for fun because we make that law based on morals.
I actually agree. Let me touch on a point. I don't. I don't think I agree with the what you said about that morals don't exist if you don't experience pleasure and pain or suffering.
Oh,
Or
okay.
you said that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So why not?
Well, what can you tell me something immoral that can happen that does not affect somebody's pleasure or displeasure?
Well, something can be immoral just because it's um, the right. Like I can give you some examples, and you can tell me if that makes sense.
Okay.
So, for example, let's say a being, well, a society wants to further the understanding of the universe. For example,
Hmm.
do you think there can be morals about whether? to not to progress or to just stagnate in developing that understanding? Or for
Um,
example, if you want me to give you another example, or you can answer me.
No, that's a good example. I like that. Okay, so if some humans want to make spaceships to go out and try to find life or do something, that if the people that would be in charge of doing that, say the people that would do the funding, if they decide I would rather this money go towards something else, and therefore that's not done, nothing's happening involving pleasure or pain. So is that immoral? Um, no, I don't think that can be considered immoral. At least how I view morals. It now, if somebody you take somebody like Elon Musk, he made a Tesla and shot it off into space. Now, if somebody can do something like this themselves, and therefore they don't need the help of others, because I don't think anybody owes anybody help doing a thing. So I I can't what would be the action that you would be calling immoral about not furthering our advancements in technology?
Well, that's if, for example, our final cause or like the fundamental structures of biology um, meant us to further the understanding of the universe, I would call that the right thing to do, or like the right way that things should be. For example, that's an example. For another example, uh, for example, those beings, if they could decide whether to dominate or seclude themselves, like dominate other sentient beings, or
Mm-hmm.
to seclude themselves, do you think they could value the sentient beings, for example? It could be immoral to consider uh, attacking those sentient beings or not,
Well, yeah, so that would be immoral
for the
to
beings that,
cause displeasure. Yeah, but that would involve pleasure or displeasure.
okay, but those beings themselves don't have pleasure or displeasure.
Which ones?
The beings that are attacking the sentient beings
Um, oh, you're saying if there was a being that is not sentient?
can't experience, well, not sentient, or if you don't agree that, because you could argue that it's just like a neutral state,
Okay.
that it doesn't experience suffering or well-being. No, none of those.
Okay, but they are attacking something that does experience well-being.
Yes.
Okay. Well, the I think an immoral act is happening to the ones that can experience well-being. There's an immoral outcome. But I guess I don't have a full understanding of the ones doing the attacking. Do we want to say they're robots? Is it easier to call them robots? Is the idea that they're not doing something immoral is because they can't recognize what's moral or not?
The robots, well, if we go with the robots, but I'm saying that they can recognize
Oh, then
moral
if
or
they
immoral.
recognize, then they are doing something immoral. I would say, yeah.
Okay, the robots can, but can the robots know that they are doing something immoral? I'm saying that they know, but they can't experience themselves the full range of sentience.
Um, yeah, I don't think you have to know. Like, for example, let's take humans. Every single human on Earth could not could not recognize a wrongdoing. Let's say like kicking a baby. I would say that kicking a baby and making the baby feel displeasure, I think that's immoral. Now, every human in the world, if they each individually they could know their own pleasure and displeasure, but they couldn't recognize it. Like if somebody kicked a baby and they all saw it, let's say every human didn't even view that as immoral, that's still, I'd call that immoral. It doesn't matter if you can recognize it or not. It would matter if you are causing pleasure or displeasure.
So, okay. So you
Because
think that, okay,
I was just going to say the wrong thing is happening to the baby. Like, so same thing, whether it's a baby or not. One of those other humans that doesn't view it as immoral, if they were kicked and they felt displeasure, an immoral act happened to them, whether them or any living thing on earth could know. I happen to know, but it wouldn't matter if nothing knew. If the immoral act happened, it happened.
Okay, so you're saying that you would know that it is immoral,
I mean,
but
I personally, me, the person talking to you, knows, but if I'm one of the humans that doesn't know, then it would just be this fact that nobody knows.
okay, and okay, so how how can a being that can't know right or wrong actually be wronged or righted? I don't.
Yeah, so I would call the action something wrong that is happening. If it's really tough with a robot, so if somebody created this robot to do a thing, it would depend on if they were programmed to do it or not. If they weren't programmed to do it, but they never gained an ability of knowing if something is right or wrong, and they are just committing actions, I don't think at this point, I don't think I view an action as needing to be understood as immoral when it happens. I think morality, and this is something I'm kind of trying to tackle myself right now. So this is kind of good to have this conversation. But I would view an immoral act as immoral based on the outcome more than anything. So if somebody does something and they're not even aware of it, they committed an immoral act. There's an immoral outcome, but the justification one could give for whoever did it or whatever did it is this thing's a robot, it didn't know. Or this lion that killed this zebra, the lion had no knowledge of what's moral or immoral, but we could still call the act immoral because it is causing suffering. It is a wrong act. At least I think so.
So let's say a sentient being can only be neutral or up, like neutral or well-being. Do you accept this concept? Like a
I'm
sentient
I'm
being
not
that
sh- I'm not sure if I follow.
a sentient being that cannot experience suffering, only like a neutral existence or well-being.
Okay.
Do you accept it? Because a lot of people don't.
Oh. Do I think there are any that experience that?
No, if it's logical.
If it's logical to think that one could feel that.
Huh? Yes.
Um, yeah. I mean, I could imagine a world where a person is born and throughout their entire lives, no matter what you do to them, they are unable to feel suffering or displeasure. And
Well,
therefore we can talk about them hypothetically.
right. Yes, I was gonna ask you because they don't suffer, but they are still sentient. Would you be okay with killing them?
Not with killing them, and for a couple reasons. So for one, I think the most desirable society would involve protection from death in just about any case, whether we're talking about abortion or death penalty or whatever. So I think that protection needs to go across the board. Aside from, I am in favor of people's liberties to have their lives ended if they want ended. So if they want assisted suicide or something. But just because, so we have a hypothetical person that cannot feel displeasure of any kind, no suffering, no pain, but they also do not want to die. I would say our society should protect them, and therefore I shouldn't be able to kill them. If I wasn't in a society and I was just out in nature, I wouldn't want to kill them if they wanted to live. I wouldn't kill them just because they can't experience the pleasure. The only thing that would make me actually have no value for their life would be if they had no value for their life. Like, let's say a person didn't want to they didn't want to be killed. They're not asking to be killed, but they also don't care about living. If you say, "Hey, do you want to live tomorrow?" and they just go like, "I don't even know what that means. I'm alive. I'm experiencing life, but I don't have a want for the future. I don't have any thoughts for anything I'll ever do." if I lived out in nature and somebody killed them, and they killed them for that reason, and therefore I wasn't afraid for being killed myself, I don't think I would have much of a thought about that. And same thing would go for animals as well.
Okay, but the animal cannot tell you, right? That it
Correct.
wants to live.
And so and that's why I give
Okay,
them the benefit of the doubt.
okay. Do you think plants, for example, want to live?
Do plants want to live? Plants have evolved to fight off things that want to consume them and different things like that. But you're going to have to explain a little further by what you mean by
Yeah,
want.
I mean that they have a will to live.
No, no. I mean, yeah, how I view a will would only be able to come from a sentient being, and I don't even mean just any sentient being. My personal guess is that humans are the only beings that currently live that have a will to live. But we might be going off different definitions. I don't.
Okay,
I think other animals have evolved to not want to die, like to defend themselves,
right.
to but not to have a will to live, like not to have a thought of I want to be here tomorrow. I don't think a cow thinks I'm going to hang out with that cow tomorrow and I'm excited about it. I don't know if animals can think past their current moment.
Right, because well, I was thinking that if I think exists in life, if I think it's living, then it has to have some sort of will. Maybe not the same that we are discussing here. So
Mhm.
you're saying that well, you made the case that that animals and humans could both have it, but would you make a difference there? Like, would you say animals have a like a sort of emotional will, and humans have a moral will to live, or would you,
Um,
or do you
No, I
really
don't. I
think?
don't think one of two essential ideas is happening. So either an animal has evolved to when it feels attacked, it defends itself, and this is a defense mechanism that has led this animal to continue to be an animal that's amongst us, where other animals that existed that didn't have these defense mechanisms did not protect themselves by running away really fast. So it's either that or it's a mixture of that and having a want for some kind of a future. There's probably something like that.
Okay, so these. So when you said that it would be wrong to kill the hypothetical being that only that doesn't experience suffering, but that you said that they would that if they had a want to live, or
Mhm.
did you mean what did you mean by?
Yeah, so they don't feel suffering. So if you stab them or something, they're not going to feel it. But they enjoy life. They might want to see a movie tomorrow. They might want to listen to their favorite album the next day. They if they want to continue living, if they have things to do. I don't know if that should be linked to morals, but I do think of that as something I would respect. I guess based on the fact that I have that same want.
So the okay, but I still don't understand. Well, how do you differentiate, or if it's the same thing, want and will to live?
Yeah, I mean, this might just be a matter of words and the fact that I haven't like delved into what is meant by will to live. But I guess here's what I can. So I want to listen to music tomorrow. That has no connection to an instinct of mine to want to live. But if a car's coming at me or if somebody's coming at me with a knife, I'm going to protect myself because similar to animals trying to run away from danger, I have instincts that want to keep me alive. And that is independent from my own personal ability to reason and want. But I have wants. I want to be in really good shape when I'm 100 years old and playing with my great grandkids. I want to go see the Grand Canyon and Niagara Falls and all these different things. And I don't know if I just have a lack of understanding of the human brain and biology, but I have wants that I feel are separate from a will to live.
Okay, so by your definition of will to live, it sounds like it's an instinct, and that even like plants or all life would have it, right? I'm just want to agree on this. Like you said, will to
No.
live is as an
Um,
instinct.
hold on. Let
Not,
me make
not
sure if I'm fully following your thought process here. Um, so yes, so plants not having a central nervous system, therefore not being able to feel pain, therefore like ripping them apart in a sense does not matter. Still, they have evolved
an
to
instinct.
thrive. Instinct, I don't know. Hold on, let me Google. I don't know if I would use the word instinct because I don't know if instinct would have to come with a brain. Let's use Oxford
Well, my
instinct.
definition was just like an automatic behavioral response. So it's
Gotcha.
technically
An
yes.
innate, typically fixed pattern of behavior in animals in response to certain stimuli. So,
Right.
yeah, if you want, just for the sake of conversation, we could
Yes.
imagine the word instinct does not involve animals, and it could be fixed patterns. But even then, I don't know if they have instincts or if they just grow with what they've evolved to contain. So if a plant has something where if something tries to eat it, that's bad for the thing trying to eat it, which I hear is a thing. I haven't researched this myself. Then I don't know if that's the plant having an instinct, even in the definition where we remove the word animal from it. I don't know if the plant just has evolved to grow that way, because I don't think the plant. Maybe we could call it an instinct in this unique case if
Okay.
the plant develops those poisons when the insect is near or something like that. That'd be kind of interesting. If an insect is near and the plant can detect it, which I wouldn't be surprised if this was a real thing. The plant all of a sudden creates these chemicals that will fight off the bug trying to eat it or something. But anyways, for the sake of conversation, we can call that an instinct if you want.
Okay. So now you mentioned that uh, this person, I don't remember which hypothetical or person we were talking about, but
Yeah.
the one that you said that wanted to have go to the beach or go to hike this mountain or something in the future. So this they want it because it's a moral good, or because it's something that will confer well-being.
Yeah, I would call it a moral good in the sense that I would call something that brings pleasure good. So something somebody wants. They could be wrong about it. I could want like somebody could desire a whole bunch of sex with prostitutes or something, and so they think it will be good, but then it could lead to like a certain disease or something, and then it will have a morally bad outcome. But yes, anyways, I don't know why I got into that. The idea of wanting to listen to music tomorrow or go on a hike, this would be a moral good. Yeah. Or at
So
least you have morally good intentions and you can hope that the outcome is moral. Sure.
so how can an animal have morally good intentions?
Oh, I don't think an animal can have more. I think an animal can be treated morally in the sense that it can it can feel pleasure or displeasure, and therefore, if you cause it displeasure, then you are committing an immoral act to the animal. But the animal, I don't think.
Okay.
Oh! I see. Did you mean because I made that comment about like a lion doesn't know it's doing a wrong action, but the immoral outcome to the zebra is happening?
No, I was asking because you said that animals also want to uh, experience something in the future. You said, I don't remember.
Oh, no, 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 no. I was saying that that's how humans are. I don't know if animals do. I would guess they do not. The animals do not want to. The I wouldn't be surprised if an animal like let's say a dog sees a river and remembers what it's like to swim in the river and then goes and jumps in the river to gain pleasure. And therefore, that is a morally good attempt that will likely have a morally good outcome unless there's an alligator in the river.
But it's not morally okay. So you think it's morally good just outside the animal, or how do you describe it?
Yeah, I don't know
Okay.
if I would describe necessarily the actions. Yeah, I guess if you are doing something to increase your pleasure, and it's not causing displeasure to something else, I'd call that morally good. I think, right?
I'll just call it like a. I had a name for that, but it's like just an emotional preference. It's not a moral preference. It's different.
Yeah. Since as of right now, I view morals as um, something being moral is something that causes pleasure, and something that is immoral is something that causes displeasure. That's where I'm at right now, but I might shift over to where you're at with enough conversation. It's a topic I'm very fascinated by, but I haven't, I haven't gone to school for moral philosophy or anything. So if I'm using some words slightly incorrect, that would be why. That's just my current intuition on it.
Okay, so this, for example, on the example that I, well, let me ask you, for example, an animal that can only suffer. Do you accept that concept?
Okay, so an animal's born and it's either not experiencing anything or it can suffer. Mhm.
Yes. Okay. It cannot. It's trapped in just suffering, but it's sentient.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, for example, those beings, would you say? I'm probably. I think that you probably would say that yes, it's okay to kill these animals
Hmm.
if they can only suffer.
Yeah, if we could detect something was only suffering, that's interesting. That's my first go-to. I mean, I've put two animals out of their misery because they were suffering. I, it's possible I could change my mind after hearing a little more about it, but that sounds to me like something worth
Yes.
doing. If we somehow discover an animal species where the species itself can only suffer, but the instinct to survive overpowers its suffering to make it continue and keep breeding. Sure, maybe humans could go, hey, let's put this species out extinct. Yeah, maybe.
So out of like good virtue.
Yeah, yeah. If we truly understood it, we should be cautious. But in a hypothetical where we knew that to be the case, I think that almost sounds obvious. But I feel like maybe it's a trap. So I'm ready for the trap.
Well, I'm not sure because I actually agree that on this, and I think that good virtue is like the best. Well, I think that good virtue can be used to not suffer, not make suffer animals or even kill them. But I have a caveat there.
Okay.
So, but would you say that then, for example, the other end of the spectrum, an animal that can only be in well-being, only pleasure, would you not kill this animal?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I don't know any reason to kill any animal aside from your hypothetical suffering species. So yes, but I don't think it's just because it can only feel pleasure. I just don't have. I would need more information on how an animal thinks before I feel like it's justifiable to kill it. Um, but if we needed to kill animals to survive, I would say that there might be moral reasons why to kill one over another. But anyways, yes, something feeling just pleasure. I don't think that's a reason to kill it.
Okay, so in that then, for example, only the middle, only neutral.
Hmm.
It is sentient, but it's only it cannot experience. pleasure and cannot experience suffering.
Hmm.
Would you also say that because it falls into non-suffering, you would say it goes above the animal that is only suffering, for example?
I would say if there was a species of that if we were to kill animals to eat them or just for whatever reason, that should be our top animal to kill. But separate from that, I would say I would care more about its interest in life. I would want to know if it has a will to live for whatever reason. I couldn't imagine something having a will to live that doesn't like because I personally feel, and you could try to convince me otherwise, that every human action is based on pleasure. I don't think there's an action we do not based on pleasure. So I don't know what a being could do without the pleasure to make their actions happen.
But
But if an animal did not experience, if it was just neutral and it could act on those neutral thoughts, and the animal had any kind of a want to live outside of instinct, like if they wanted to be here tomorrow, I would not want to kill it. But if it had no want, if it had no care about the future, no wants, none of that, and neutral, I could not imagine valuing its life. But maybe I'd have to think that over as well. That's very interesting, though. I like that.
the, the you
Sorry,
mentioned
I
that,
ramble sometimes. Sorry.
right? Yeah, I don't want to interrupt you, but okay. You mentioned the person, the neutral person, or that, but that is, you mentioned that a person, for example, that is only neutral or doesn't experience sentience, if it can have moral preferences, and if it has a moral preference to live, you would not kill it, even if it's only suffering, only neutral, or only well-being. Do you agree? Like,
Yeah. If something had a preference to live, if something knew it was suffering, and outside of instinct, it had a human, for example, a human that's only suffering, and they don't want to be put out of their misery for some reason, which would mean they must be deriving some kind of pleasure from their suffering. Yeah, if they can tell me, or if I could just magically know that they do not want to be killed, I would think
okay,
they shouldn't be killed.
right. So I'm kind of like sort of confused because you seem to like accumulate a lot of traits, a lot of different characteristics into
Okay.
considering what if something is okay to eat. But for example, if we found that species that only feels neutral valence, would you be okay with breeding them to eat them for
Oh,
livestock?
interesting. Okay, so in my mind, one of the problems with breeding is I have a problem with ownership. I have a problem with fencing something in and having and enslaving something essentially. So the question is there a possible sentient being that it would not be immoral to cage them in and breed them? Because you can't breed I would view the act of breeding, whether they're fencing or not, the same. I'd view fencing in because you are forcing them to do something against their will, just by the act of what we would call breeding. Because if we weren't doing it and they were breeding on their own, there'd be no force. Okay, so we have an animal species that has no want of the future and it has neutral experiences. It cannot suffer, cannot feel pleasure. Can we breed these?
Are you
I think
asking?
I think
Okay.
I think so. Sorry, I'm trying to come up with a good reason to not do this. I um and we're bringing this thing so close to being non-sentient that I don't think I can come up with anything. For example, I came up with a thought experiment in the past myself of what if we took an animal and we cloned it, but within the cloning process, we made it not have a brain, that a functioning brain, but it could just wander around like a zombie, and it was just like zombie cows. And they don't feel anything and they have no will for the future, nothing. And so this is kind of what this is. Um, Yes, I think that is if we are not causing any displeasure, and if we are not preventing it from perceiving anything it wants to perceive, then yes, I don't value that thing. I am perfectly fine with
And
consuming it and having sexual acts with it and hanging it upside down by its feet. Yeah,
okay,
it doesn't
but
matter. Yeah.
okay, but okay. So now for a being that is only experiencing pleasure, wouldn't it be better? Like, wouldn't it be like a good virtue to breed these animals?
No, I know some people, utilitarians specifically, that think it's good to make something exist that doesn't exist. I've never been convinced of this. What are you drinking? That looks awesome.
Uh, raw milk,
Oh, okay, interesting. Okay.
like yes, it's
Um,
amazing.
oh, interesting. Okay, you said raw milk, like from a cow.
Right? Yes,
Oh, okay. Do you normally keep it refrigerated, but then it can just stay next to
yes.
you
I
for?
I let it ferment for 12 to 24 hours, depending on the temperature, and then I just put it on the fridge. So that's like the point where it's all the lactose is broken down and it's not sweet, but it's also well, you can digest it correctly, and it tastes sorry, it tastes not very acidic. It's still like sort of it's not sweet, but it's also not as acidic. So it's in the middle,
Gotcha.
and
Okay.
it tastes
Well,
pretty great.
I made a note to bring that milk back up later or next time we talk, but I didn't want to get too far away from your line of questioning. So you were saying the thing about breeding something that has pleasure. No, I don't. If something wants to breed on its own, I have not been convinced that any species should not breed on their own. If something that can reason, like a human, decides not to breed for any personal moral reasons, I stand by that. I haven't been convinced that we should convince other humans to not breed. But yes, I do not think humans should take animals, even an animal that on its own was just naturally going to go extinct because all of a sudden uh, its evolutionary approach just made it them stop wanting to breed, and we go, oh, there's only like 10 of these left, and these animals experience the most pleasure ever, should we force breed them to get more of them? I'm not convinced of any of that. I'm not convinced that we need to keep something from going extinct. The only time I think we should do something like that is if the actions that are coming from it cause displeasure to humans. If the actions from an animal going extinct will mess the ecosystem up to where me personally and hopefully everybody else will just feel the same way I do because I care about myself. If anything bad is going to happen to me, I want actions to be done to stop that, even if it's immoral, like breeding a pleasure animal.
But look, I don't understand where you drew the line between a being that is only on neutral and a being that is only on pleasure.
Mhm.
Why did you draw the line there?
Well, I don't think we should breed either of them. But are you
I thought you
asking
said
why I wouldn't want to kill a being that could have a lot of pleasure, but I would be okay with killing the one that's neutral?
no. I thought because you said breeding, you would breed
I would
a
not breed it.
animal. You would not.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Breeding the one that has neutral feelings
Yes,
and essentially has a zombie-like brain, therefore they don't perceive anything and they have no care of the future. That feels that is fine too, but maybe I added an element you didn't mean in there, which would be like it doesn't have its own personal wants. Like
emotional
it
preferences.
yeah, like so if this animal was out in the wild and I went up to it and it ran away, I don't think I should grab it and force it to breed or anything. But if they are in such a state that they're essentially like, well, I guess like bivalves, if they're essentially something that I can come in contact with and I can interact with, and I, in a sense, can breed them, and it can be like oysters or mussels or something else that is not sentient. I don't see an issue here because I don't see the elements of what makes something sentient isn't here for me to negatively affect. So if something is
So,
able to feel pleasure, I don't want to cause it displeasure. But so what's the other element?
but you can't. That being, we
Oh,
agree
oh,
that
because it can't feel it no matter what I do to it. Got you. Well, okay. So what can it feel? Okay, so aside from its ability to feel, be on a spectrum of pleasure, what else is its brain activity doing?
so okay. I thought we agreed already, but okay. So you are asking
Sorry,
for the being that is only feels pleasure, for
pleasure.
example.
Yeah.
So, well, that's why I asked you if you agreed that it's sentient, but it doesn't have emotional preferences, but it can
Mm-hmm.
still be in one side of the spectrum. And well, we agree this animal doesn't have moral agency, doesn't have sapience, rationality, sentience, only sentience, like
Yeah.
like a regular animal.
Yeah. Okay. So if it's like the one that we were talking about where it's neutral, and in this case, the only difference is that it can only feel pleasure, then I don't feel any different about that one. That if that's just like a bivalve, then then sure, yeah, we can do whatever you want with it.
So, are so you say that it's important, or that wouldn't matter if it only felt one valence, like only neutral, only pleasure,
Yeah.
only suffering.
If I cannot cause displeasure, so I don't think humans need to add pleasure to animals, but I don't think we should cause displeasure. So there might have been a misunderstanding here. So an animal that can only feel suffering, an animal that's neutral, or an animal that feels pleasure, if I can't cause it displeasure, then that's an element I can stop thinking about. I don't have to think about if I cause it displeasure. So I don't care about that part of the animal. If the animal on top of that does not have any will to live, want for the future, um, anything like that, if I could magically know that, then yeah, I can't imagine anything involving that animal worth caring about.
Okay, so so be, if it doesn't have sense of the future, you don't care if it's like only pleasurable, only sufferable, only neutral. That's what you said.
Um, yeah, sort of, yeah. I guess an element aside from the future. The future is the main thing I care about because the future is what makes me care if it is essentially this magically snapped out of existence. Like it's not going to suffer; it just dies. So I hope animals don't have a care for the future because that's just a bummer if they can recognize what's happening before they're going to die. But if an animal can perceive things, if an animal can like be standing there and looking out and seeing life and having interest in what it's doing, then I do not think it is a moral act to remove this thing from life. But if we knew that it was in a zombie state of sorts where it didn't have any care of anything, then no, I view it like a bivalve. But I don't think that's the case, right? We're just talking hypothetically, or are you thinking there are animals that aren't
Yes,
perceiving things and having thoughts of it? Oh, you do. Okay.
yes, it's just a hypothetical. Like,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
but I was asking then if you would, uh, it would be reasonable to use these animals for livestock. Hypothetical.
Gotcha. Well, so I don't think anything should be, unless needed. I don't think anything should be forced to be anywhere. So
Not even
if
bivalves.
oh, sorry. I don't think a sentient being that could want to not be somewhere should force to be somewhere. So if I found a cow out in the woods, I don't think I should be able to put a rope around its neck and then guide it to a certain place, put it in a fence, close it in, and then when I'm ready to milk it, tie it to an area. And if it tries to move around while it's being milked, I can like, I don't know how you milk cows. But So, anyways, I don't think animals should be forced to do anything. I'm sure there are some approaches that humans could interact with animals that I would consider not force. If you go up to an animal and you're
But
out in nature and it
so
doesn't go anywhere, it's fine.
what is bad about forcing in this case?
What is bad about forcing? Um, it's I would say that it's almost certainly causing displeasure. If you go up to something and it is, oh, in this case, you're saying the forcing while talking about the thing that can't feel the
Yes.
displeasure. Gotcha. Sorry, I was thinking we were just talking in general. Um, Yeah, so okay, so talking about the animal that only feels pleasure, it cannot feel displeasure. Therefore, if you are forcing it somewhere, it wants to be forced there. Now, this is kind of interesting because if it's almost comparing to maybe a mentally challenged person that can't know if something wrong is happening to them. So it'd be like if somebody like if somebody that was like mentally challenged that can't know of something being wrong is being taken into a room to be taken advantage of or something like that. There's an interesting element there. Oh, go on. Yeah.
But for example, that mentally challenged person, I would just, if it's uh, ultimately or fundamentally uh, actually like a sapient, for example. So it matters that it pertains to the fundamental structures of the it has the fundamental structures for sapiens, for example, even though it doesn't actually have it because he's mentally impaired.
Mm-hmm.
So that person, for example, I would classify him as a sapient or like a normal human, for example.
Kind of like I was saying earlier about a society should protect because if we have these ideas then we want to follow through with them. So what if it was in nature then? Would you say if it's in nature and nobody would find out that if the challenged person isn't going to ever care about it that you wouldn't consider it morally wrong?
Sorry, you cut off.
Oh yeah, yeah. So you're in nature. There's no society that has to protect certain values, and somebody, a person, is a caretaker of sorts, or stumbles upon a mentally challenged person that pretty much only feels pleasure. They're challenged in a way where they'll never feel any kind of suffering, and if that person took advantage of them, the mentally challenged person would never know. Let's just say that it was a very neutral act and it didn't affect them in any way, and they'll never know. If the only thing you know is that it took place, would you call that an immoral act?
I would call it immoral because he is fundamentally sapient, and I would give it implied consent, implicit consent. Like and like I don't care how he is right now. I care that he has the fundamental structures that give it the fundamental sapience. For example,
Interesting.
the
Okay.
moral agency.
Yeah. I don't know if I think about it the exact same way. I see, maybe I see concerns in
That's how
different
I
ways,
protect
but
disabled people, babies, and so on. That's how I argue for them, like fundamental
yeah.
structures.
Interesting. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's. So what was the last question before I
Right.
segued it into people?
I forgot.
Because I turned it into like a mentally challenged person because I was saying. Oh, okay. So you find that there's a species of animals. Let's say cows. Let's pretend cows in this hypothetical world are like this. So cows only feel pleasure. And therefore, if you took them from the wild, they have no care at all. If you put them in the tiniest cage, they don't feel displeasure. They're going to be happy no matter what you do to them. You can even stab them and they go, oh, pretty, it's red. They don't feel anything like that at all. Then yes, that seems perfectly fine to do
Okay.
because the actions aren't mentally affecting them. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So okay, that's great. And so now, but you're still saying that you cannot breed these species or beings because you're forcing them or because
No,
of
no, no,
something else.
no. So in this case,
In this case, no.
Again, the best comparison I could do would be the bivalve situation. I don't know how we multiply bivalves. I'm not sure the process there, but anyways, yes. If there was a zombie like animal that could feel nothing and there's no problem breeding them, there's no whatever. Yeah. You breed them and it's basically a flower that happens to be in the animal kingdom. Yeah.
So the concept of ownership, you don't care.
No. Ownership does not matter to something that is not a sentient being. No.
That doesn't have emotional preferences.
Um,
Because I'm
well,
trying to,
again, we've talked about so many different things. I can't remember exactly which things we connected to it, but
because you might think that only pleasure, only neutral is not sentient for you.
well, no, that's not the only element. So the definition of sentience, and I guess maybe we should have talked about this from the beginning. From my understanding, um, it is the ability to feel and or perceive. So I guess it could go either way. So if an animal could only feel, and therefore it fit this description of what we're talking about, then that would be a sentient being that wouldn't matter. Let's see if it could
Before we go
feel.
on,
Yeah,
what do you say perceive and feel? Isn't
yeah.
perceive or perception, can't perception be like only consciousness, or even like something like a robot that has sensors and that can perceive stimuli? What's Is that not perception? Or
Yeah, let me see.
because
Okay.
I prefer to say feelings,
Yeah,
not really
feeling
perception.
feeling or sensation as distinguished from perception or thought as distinguished from interesting. Hold on. That was Merriam-Webster. Let me check. I'm going to check something real quick. Sentience. Okay, sentience means having the capacity to have feelings.
That's what I usually.
This requires a level of awareness and cognitive ability.
Yes, so I say that sometimes, for example, you can be aware, or I don't know if you accept conscious and not sentient.
Be conscious and not sentient. Sorry, say that one more time.
That you can uh, be conscious, or maybe only perceive stimuli
Mm-hmm.
and not be sentient.
Yeah, I don't know much about that, but that seems like a thing that could be.
Like anything that, like well, an AI, for example, that could uh, perceive things,
Mm-hmm.
that would not be sentient still.
Um, gotcha. Yeah, I would say not.
Right.
Yeah.
But what? Okay. But Why were we saying? We were trying to search what the definition is, right? So it's just feelings then.
Yeah. Yeah. Sentience means having the capacity to have feelings. This requires a level of awareness and cognitive ability.
Okay. And I don't know if you agreed earlier, or you were not. We were not on the same page. That we can have a like a living human robot, living supercomputer
Mm-hmm.
that is conscious, can perceive things, can know things, but it doesn't have feelings, no emotional preferences, only moral preferences. And it appeared
Um,
that you said that yes, because morals do exist outside sentience.
Morals only exist when pertaining to sentience. Now, a moral,
So okay, but you
if
said
you
I thought
created a robot that was not moral, I mean, if the robot was controlled by someone, then that would be that that sentient being doing the immoral act by making the robot do a certain thing. But if you created a robot to be able to make the choices on their own, then the immoral act would be happening only if something was happening from the robot to a sentient being.
Because I'm trying to make this distinction that like this this is a moral agent. It doesn't have sentience. It can perceive and know things,
Mm-hmm.
and and it can be wronged, and it can be it thinks it can
It can
think
be
it can
wronged.
it can
Ex-
know that it can, yes, it can be wronged, that it can know that the things that were done to it, that it perceived, were wrong or right.
It'd be aware of it, but it wouldn't feel it. That'd be
And
interesting.
it knows it.
What would be the wrong action happening to it?
So that's what we were discussing earlier about like understanding the universe, or like it can also be like how resources are shared and stuff like that. That isn't.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree that it can be wronged. I don't know if I agree that the robot, again, I don't know much about it. I hear that people talk about AI becoming sentient and conscious. It's just not something I know enough about. But so with animals, just to kind of clarify. So from my understanding, what makes an animal sentient, what makes a cow sentient but not an oyster, is because of its brain and its central nervous system. The central nervous system would be the part where it detects suffering, pleasure, and displeasure. But because of its brain, it can perceive life, so it can walk around. It can see things. It can have its own experience.
Yes, feel life,
Yeah.
because perception is not pertaining to sentience necessarily, right?
Perception.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm
Maybe
trying.
maybe not. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to separate it. So it's a possibility for a purely rational being,
Hmm.
so that it can perceive things, know things, and it can be wronged. So, for example, what do you think that it can't be wronged? For example, if it gets killed, don't you think that this being can say that it's wrong for it to get killed?
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't really have a full understanding of how one can make a robot that can be sentient in a way where it being killed would be wrong. Seems perfectly feasible. It's just not an area I've ever, like, I would never have guessed it could exist. And so when I hear about it, it seems wild and crazy, and it's just not a topic I've ever gotten into. It
Like,
Yeah.
the point is that, for example, if humans became someday, they, for some reason, they were able to like strip out their sentience, but they
Hmm.
keep their perception of the world, their knowledge of the world, maybe even a sense of the future, and their
Hmm.
moral agency. So why would it why would it be wrong to get killed in that
Well, the want
scenario?
for the future is kind of interesting because I've actually heard arguments where I think it might even be worth considering it not a moral topic to end the life of a human. Um, and so it's complicated. What I would say is that since I have a want for the future, that it makes sense for me to gather with other humans and say, we should have ways to protect all of our futures because we all have this want for the future. I don't know how to describe the idea of me not existing as something immoral taking place. If somebody just is able to do like a Thanos snap and they snap their fingers, and then I all of a sudden don't exist. I think the knowledge that this could happen to other people would cause displeasure of them imagining their future not going the way they want it. But once I'm gone, I'm gone. So it's hard to imagine something immoral happening there. It's just kind of almost a human error to worry about that in a sense. But it seems very much worth protecting. I'm gonna stop rambling there. Maybe I don't know if that made any sense.
Okay, like, can you summarize what you meant? Because I
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm just saying, like, so I don't know. So in my mind, the idea of something being moral or immoral is based on pleasure or displeasure. And so I if I knew I was going to have my life ended in a week, I would feel displeasure knowing it. So there's an issue there. But if I didn't know it, if it was if somebody just had planned on executing me and they did it without me feeling any pain, um, me now thinking about it, I wish that wouldn't have happened. If somebody else dies, if you died, and since I don't know you, I can't feel any emotional connection to you. But if you died, I would imagine you had a want for the future. So the only thing I could imagine caring about with the idea that you died is that you had a want for the future and didn't get to experience this thing. And so that's kind of how I feel about myself. But once I'm dead, once I'm humanely removed, there's not really an immoral act taking place anymore. It's just an act happened that worries people that do not want to have their life ended. That's the best way I could summarize it. I don't remember why I got to talking about that detail of it, but
in a universe where there is no suffering or well-being, can there still be morals or moral preferences? And that's what
um,
why I asked you, like, for those examples, or I told you those examples of right
yeah,
and wrong in a universe where there is only rationality, only moral preferences.
yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It depends on if I want to lump in the idea of ending someone's existence into morals. If I don't, then no. Aside from ending somebody's existence, the only things that I think would the word moral would even affect whatsoever is the pleasure or displeasure of a being that can feel pleasure or displeasure. So a world without pleasure or displeasure, there would be no morals.
So, but do you think that it would not be wrong to kill the life, or kill the person, or this being, take away their life, which they are a living they are a living person, and they are a biological person, and they have an instinctual will to live still.
Yeah. And that's what I don't know about. I don't know if ending something that just has an instinct to live, if that matters. Um, but the only excuse I can give whatsoever for caring about the brain, the being with the brain that has wants for the future, the only excuse I have is that I have wants for the future. Like if I
So
were
you,
to list every reason I don't want to be killed today, if I didn't have any of those reasons, if we took that whole list and I didn't have it, then it wouldn't matter if I was killed today. And so the fact that I can think of why I don't want to be killed is the only thing I can imagine. But that might just be me not thinking it all the way through.
well, I'm asking you this because, like, the way, my opinion, the way I view things is that you can, well, no, that morals actually only exist on, like, with moral agency, and that beings that don't have any moral agency cannot, um, it can't be wronged because they don't have moral preferences. They only have emotional preferences. So I think that their want for the future is only like, it's an emotional preference. Not
Mm-hmm.
They are not viewing it as like it's right to continue existing. They're viewing it as it should not be resisted, or it is my instinct, but there's no moral preferences. So I would not. So I don't think that more it would be they can be wronged.
Okay, well, can I ask you a question about that? Okay, so do you mean like a dog? If you just go up to a dog and stab it, but you stab it in a way where it's not going to die, it's just going to bleed and whimper, and it's crying out. You you don't think that that is an immoral act?
It is immoral, but out of bad virtue. So only pertaining to the human or the person that is acting upon him, but that virtue will not exist without moral agency. So if it's in between animals, there's no immoral action.
Interesting. See, I completely disagree. Like, which is why I think you're right in a sense, which is why most people would not call it immoral for a lion to attack a zebra. Now, I think that an immoral thing is happening, but because of the lack of moral agency, there's no reason to view the lion as this despicable thing. Now, I don't even know if it's worth viewing humans as despicable things because the actions would be based on whatever brain they happen to be born with. But yes, we can detect something that others can't detect, but I don't think that changes how right or wrong it is. If I step on a dog's foot and it whimpers and cries and it's really sad, there is displeasure that's happening there. Now, just because I can think of what displeasure even means doesn't make it any different displeasure than if a bear steps on a dog's foot. The same action is happening. Now, most people only usually refer to morals when something's done intentionally or without good reason, which might lead you to view this as if this was happening with no moral agents, that there wouldn't be a moral situation happening. But I just don't agree. I don't
Because
agree.
when, for example, a bear steps or kills a dog or makes it suffer,
Mm-hmm.
who is being wronged?
The dog.
But how can it be wronged if it has no moral agency?
Well,
It doesn't
help
know
me
it's wrong.
understand if I understand moral agency wrong. But by moral agency, my understanding of moral agency would be the ability to know if you are committing an immoral act. Does moral agency just mean the ability to perceive morals? Or to
I
know if
thought
you're acting immorally. I thought it was to act, but either way, yeah, I don't think you have to know that an immoral thing is happening. Like a dog, if I was hiding behind something and I shoot a dog with a BB gun, or even a person with a BB gun, they might not know who did it, but they can feel that the bad thing happened to them.
no, but it's not a bad thing
It's not a bad thing to have displeasure for no
to the
reason.
animal to the animal.
Yeah, it's a bad thing to the
Only,
animal to
no,
be
but
stepped for their foot to be stepped
only
on.
yes, only humans can say that that suffering is bad. That's my point of view. Animals
You
cannot.
don't think suffering is bad, just naturally.
No, only if it can be assigned a rational moral value.
Why?
Because otherwise it's not bad or good. There's nothing being.
You but if you just witness I don't know, just a random a koala bear falling out of a tree and its leg breaks and it breaks in a way where it's just going to be flopping around just like super sad, crying, freaking out. You don't view this as something sad? Or you view it as sad, but it's sad because your brain's tricking you about it?
It's what do you mean by sad?
Yeah, so sad be like I guess sad as in you're feeling that you are recognizing that something bad is happening. You're recognizing that the koala is feeling in a way that it doesn't want to feel. It has a range because it's sentient. Unless we misunderstand what sentient beings feel, it feels pleasure or displeasure. So if it was in the tree eating its eucalyptus, koala, yeah, eucalyptus, it might be feeling pleasure. If it falls out and breaks its leg, even if it's not intelligent enough to know why it's suffering, which they probably do, I don't know. But if it's rolling around, its leg's broken, it's close to dying, and it's just suffering, that's displeasure. And we can perceive it, so we can realize that this thing is happening that's displeasure. And if we didn't exist, then there'd just be a bunch of animals not knowing. I don't know if other animals are empathetic. Some might be and some might not be. But I guess I'm trying to figure out if we witnessed a monkey go up to a koala and take a big stick and break its leg and then walk off just because it wanted to be an asshole, I think it would be reasonable for us to call that immoral because we're witnessing something happening where one being is causing another being displeasure. And then we can justify it in a sense where we would say we're not going to punish that monkey because the monkey doesn't even know what it's doing if we don't think it's intelligent enough to know. In my mind, if it is intentionally causing suffering, then it might be actually worth euthanizing that animal. If we think that it's just doing part of its nature where it is not intentionally doing a wrong thing, then we might justify it or whatever. But no matter what, an act happened where displeasure is caused that did not need to be there. That must be some form of immoral. And
It
if not immoral, it's something like it.
it's only I think that it's only moral when you perceive or see that action and you can do something about it. So you can do something in good virtue of the animal, but the whatever is happening between the animals or to the animals themselves is not wrong.
Okay, if the koala could recognize it, if the koala saw that the monkey was hitting its leg with the stick and recognized that monkey did it and wish that monkey did not do it, what would need to happen for you to call it an immoral act?
To, well, have moral agency, but are you
But
asking
but the
something
but the
more?
one committing the immoral act would have to have the moral agency, not the one having it committed to them. So if the koala could had moral agency and could
uh,
recognize the immoral act happening, it's still not even immoral because the monkey's the one that did it.
so the koala is a moral agent. So
Yeah, for let's just say for sake of this conversation, the
okay,
the koala bear is, and the monkey takes a stick and hits the koala's leg, but the monkey is not a moral agent.
so the koala is is wronged. Yes, the koala is wronged, and it is wronged. So yes,
So an immoral thing happened to it, but the monkey didn't do something immoral because the monkey is not a moral agent.
yes.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay, okay. And the reason I think that's important is because I think that if we actually give rights to animals, or like things that they have to abide by, then we'd have to like ultimately jail all animals for eternity because they can't overcome their instinct or their emotions to have their own volition. They
Yeah.
can't override that,
Mhm.
and so it would kind of degrade our concept of rights, which I uh, think their purpose is to create a morally functioning society. So
Yeah.
it's it degrades uh, society, or like yes,
Gotcha. Okay. And okay, maybe one of the things that I'm having a tougher time understanding is what you're calling wrong about the human committing what I would call an immoral act to an animal, that you are saying that it's not immoral. So maybe that's the best part to go over. Although I probably don't have
okay,
too much time, but we should do another conversation soon. But the so in my mind, because animals can feel pleasure or displeasure, that it's probably best if we don't have any animals living amongst us. I think all animals should be out in the wild doing their thing, not being arrested. just living out in the wild because we can't reason with them, and I don't know how much land we need to give them, but whatever land we give them, we happen to give them. Now, your thoughts are that some of them can live amongst us to be either our pets or ones we're going to eat. So I'm just trying to figure out exactly what element. So you said stabbing a dog is wrong, not because the dog was wronged, but because of something else. So yeah,
Bad
help me
virtue.
understand that part.
Yes, because of bad virtue. That the
What does that
animal,
mean?
the okay, let me check the. It means that it is wrong. The only person that is doing, or the only wrong thing is the person uh, inflicting that suffering because it is out of bad virtue, and it cultivating those. It's analogous to creating suffering and death to moral agents or like rational humans.
Mm-hmm.
So cultivating that bad virtue is bad for society. So that's a reason I would not inflict suffering or death unjustifiably. And if
Okay,
it
so
can be justified, if it
let's
can
say
be okay,
uh, sorry,
if
you
it
go
can
for it.
be justified, then you can act in good virtue because I value more writing or like uh, yes, abiding by moral agents that need to be righted and making them not wronging them from the justifiable good that is a non-moral agent. So that I would do that would be a justification for me, and that would be good virtue for me.
Okay. It was okay. So I'm trying to figure out if I fully understand how it's affecting the society. So if somebody owned a dog and they had that dog in a basement and they like to torture that dog for fun and nobody was going to find out and it was not going to affect the society whatsoever, but the dog's whimpering, crying, having a miserable life. They're feeling a lot of displeasure and at some point they're going to die. They'll die in like a month or 2 months. You could magically know this is happening, but you live in this society and you magically know it's happening, and you also magically know that this guy isn't going to do anything else wrong. So him doing this isn't something where you could assume he's a serial killer or anything. Are you personally bothered by the fact that this happened to this dog, even if it's not going to affect the society you live in?
It's not gonna affect the society because that
Because it's in
person
the basement. This guy's in the basement. I didn't
that
know
person
exactly what you meant by the society being affected before, but
okay.
I'm trying to create a situation where nobody else knows about it. So you live in the society,
And
but also you happen to just be godlike, so you can know everything going on. But you could also ignore it. You can just know what's going on. But I'm curious emotionally how you feel about this. So this guy's just stabbing this dog, making it bleed, making it suffer. The guy's family will never know. It's his secret basement. The guy's never going to go hurt a person ever. He just likes to make dogs suffer. And it's not going to be anything that affects society, the society you live in. Do you feel emotional about this?
uh, if I feel emotional, like
Like, do
you
you
mean
feel
that,
bad for these dogs in any way?
and I can't do anything about it.
Nope. It's just like you're watching a movie and something sad might happen in a movie, and you feel sad that some character that you really got to know and liked died or something. Except in this case, you actually are witnessing it. You're seeing security footage of this guy torturing this dog, and no, you can't do anything about it. And it's just me wondering if you feel bad for the dog, if you would wish it didn't happen, but also separately, whether you do wish it didn't happen or not, do you feel bad or sad or something like that?
Okay, and this person is not gonna do anything like similar to the torturing of that animal when it comes out to society, or is it not part of society? I don't.
Correct. It'll never be known. He's gonna bury it
No,
in
no,
his.
not known. But if this person is gonna come to society,
Oh yeah, yeah. So this person is part of the society. Everybody sees him every day. He says howdy to his neighbors. He works a good job, and he's a nice guy. He just happens to love torturing dogs. So the only thing to dislike about this guy in your society you live in would be if you dislike the idea of somebody torturing dogs.
Well, I would think that this person's bad virtue would impact society at some point.
But it's not going to.
It's never going to.
It will never.
So it doesn't. So if there's no change in, like, okay,
Yeah, nothing, nobody, no person will ever be negatively affected by this guy. But let's say they're also never positively affected, that he's just a neutral element of this society. There's no
okay. So is there like uh, is there anything that this person is doing it for?
personal pleasure because he's sadistic when it comes to dogs, but only if they're in his basement. When he sees dogs out in public, he loves them. He thinks they're great. He has no interest in torturing them. He doesn't even have a bad thought. But the second he takes one down in his basement, he loves watching them whimper and cry, little tears coming out, blood, everything.
I mean, I would think that that's bad virtue, and that there's a possibility that it's never. Well, I don't see how I can be certain that it's an impossibility that this person is gonna act uh,
I created the
analogously.
I created this hypothetical. He
Okay.
is never going to act that way.
So, and then if I feel sad, like
Yeah.
a negative emotion,
However you view that. Yeah. Do you feel like I initially said bad, but you don't need to feel bad for anything because you didn't do anything. But yeah, do you feel sad? Do you wish it didn't happen? Would you, if you could press a button to make it not happen, do you feel that that would be worth doing? Even in
you're
my
saying that
hypothetical where
but
you
you're saying that
know
I
it's,
can change it. That I can change it.
let's go ahead and say that. Yeah, you can change it, but do you think it's worth changing even though you know it's a person doing an act they like, they enjoy it, and it will
Okay.
never affect your society?
Yes, that would be wrong because if I can change it, if I don't change it, it's the same as saying that I want this dog to suffer. That's how I view it.
I thought you did want this dog to suffer. I'm glad you answered that because I thought you don't care if a dog suffers because you only care about the outcome of society.
Which
But
well, and I'm a part of society, and if I ignore, like I don't do anything about a suffering being, then that's bad virtue on my part, and I'm part of society, so I see it as important. I went
interesting.
around your hypothetical, or
Yeah, 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 yeah. I don't view that as an honest answer, but that's all right. But
well,
okay, so separately though, you would feel sad if you couldn't do anything about it. You'd just feel sad that it happened. I think you kind of already answered that by the fact that you would stop it. But so you feel sad about this dog being harmed.
yes.
Okay. And so in my mind, this could extend to other animals, which would be why somebody that's okay with eating animals would not want them tortured, right? Like you would not want the factory farm type stuff happening, the cutting off of tails of pigs and cutting the teeth out and all
Yes,
that kind of
if
stuff.
it's not justified,
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
because
Cool.
if it's justified, then I think it's good virtue. I think good virtue.
Okay. Yeah. 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 Interesting.
And
Cool.
do you okay? Any other questions, or because
No.
I think
No.
we agree on a lot of
Yeah.
things. I think, and we are. If I was vegan and like we are both very different to the regular vegan.
Yeah.
I was I was actually thinking that we were going to go in on a name the trade,
Mm.
logical dialogue or something, but I think this was a lot more like this brought a lot of better questions.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I thought this was really good. I do have one more question before we hop off here. Um, if you could magically know that animal products were not needed for health. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if the healthiest outcome would be something involving a little bit of animal products. It's probably healthier maybe to get your B12 from an animal than to get it from a supplement or whatever. But let's say you could magically know that the healthiest a person could be actually would involve not touching a single animal product. When you said that the only animal harm you would want is one that's justified, would you say that therefore now harming any animals would be not justified? Or sorry, ending the
Yes,
life of any? Okay, cool.
suffering or death. Like
Okay, cool.
yes,
Awesome.
both.
Awesome. See,
So, but I
I
don't
think
think that it's
I
justified.
think we would have an amazing world if everybody talked about this topic and we found out how many people that still are okay with eating animals feels what you just said, because I think that's a really important thing that we don't hear enough. And then like most vegans, all the ones that have watched this are probably just thinking, calling you a carnist and thinking of you in this horrible way or whatever. And I think that's a bad way of doing this. I really think it's important for, in the same way that we all talk about the ethics of circumcision, abortion, death penalty, all these different topics, figuring out how our society should be. We should have conversations going with all the people that think if I don't need animals to have optimal health, I don't think they should be harmed. That needs to be a group of people. And it warms my heart when I hear people say that, even if they consume animals, because it means that as we continue in life, we're going to learn these things and figure out what we do and don't need. If I thought I needed to eat animals to be healthy, I would eat the hell out of them. I just happen to have been convinced I don't. So I don't touch any animals. If you truly are only eating the ones that you think you need to be healthy, and you look perfectly healthy to me, you are the least of my worries when it comes to vegan stuff. But
Thank you.
also, you seem very intelligent, and I really like your way of questioning. So we should talk again soon.
Yes, I really like pushing the questions like you. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome.
Yes.
Okay. Well, you have a good night, and we'll set something up soon, and I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Goodbye.
All right. Take care.
See you.
All right. Well, that was a really cool conversation. I was so focused on it, I didn't get a chance to really look in the comments much at all. But I see Angelo and Jeremy and Jerem in the comments here. And yeah, I hope you guys really enjoyed that. He was very interesting. And if you guys want to chat with him, maybe I can set that up, because there might have been a few things where I maybe not educated enough on the philosophical terms, and I think I fumbled up the some of the details of sentience. But I have to go off why sentience matters to me anyway, so it doesn't matter if I can recite the exact reasons. But anyways, that was that was fun. That was a very interesting conversation. I hope you guys got something out of it. And then, yeah, Jerem, I don't know if you saw my last email, but I sent you an email recently, or maybe a week ago actually, about setting up a conversation. I wanna get into consequentialism with you, and so I wanna maybe even one where we don't even have to talk about veganism at all, just to get into the consequentialism. And then Jeremy, yeah, hopefully, me and Jeremy will be talking to Akash. The three of us will be talking this Sunday, I believe, at 8 a.m. PST, and that'll be really good. And then, Angelo, we need to set up our next talk. We've talked about a few different types of talks, but I want to do the next follow-up to the definition. I have a few ideas for you, but I also want you to be able to challenge me, because I know you have a bunch of challenges. Elliot Davies, I'm glad that you were in here. Yeah, is in here. What philosophy aspect do you think you fumbled? I only tuned in right at the end. Yeah, this is one worth watching. I'd recommend that you go through and watch it from the beginning if you're interested in a deep dive into breaking down ideas of how one feels about elements of sentience. Mostly, I don't know if it's exactly philosophical terms, but we were talking about what makes something moral or immoral, and I kind of have my intuition leads me to a certain stance where it would take further education for me to recognize if I'm just using words wrong. I'm currently working on the idea of morals referring to both actions and outcomes. And so if an outcome is immoral, then I like the idea of viewing that as an immoral act that happened, even if the acts weren't intentional. And I don't know, I'm tossing around a few different ideas. Um, and yeah. So, anyways, I yeah. Anyways, so when it comes down to morals, I don't know if I have the best way of describing how it should be looked at. And what I mean by that is I don't know if there is a best way. I guess I don't feel confident in my own stance, assuming that like a month from now, if I study the topic further, I might look back at myself and laugh that I viewed it a certain way because of not thinking it through. Um, yeah, cool. Anyways, I do got to hop off here. I always want to just go through here and answer any questions because I love discussing these types of things. But anyways, I'm going to hop off here. If anybody watching currently hasn't seen it, in the community section, I posted a thing saying if anybody has any questions, they should go in there and ask me. And I might do like video responses to those questions, like the little short 1 minute ones, or maybe even longer ones, depending on the question. But I think that kind of thing's pretty fun. And it's a good way for me to clarify any of my stances, especially if something came across a certain way and you want to challenge something I said. I can clarify that in an answer. Consequentialism versus deontology actually meld into one another. They're not entirely separate. Metaethics is complex as hell. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, there are a lot of connections there, especially when you get into the threshold deontology. Then it's almost identical. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. I don't even know if people should have one specific stance. If they, I've never. Maybe it's just me, but I've never felt good about calling myself like a deontologist or a consequentialist, or even like with political stuff. I lean libertarian, but I don't know if there's any stances, if there's any political philosophy or moral philosophy, or I'm not religious at all, so religious philosophy wouldn't factor in with me. But I don't know if there's any stance where I just say, oh, okay, I connect perfectly with this stance. Each of these philosophies have a bunch of different ideas, and I feel like we probably all align with different parts of each of them. But yeah. Anyways, gonna hop off here. You guys have a good night, and yeah, we'll talk again soon.